The sky over the human colony on Orion's edge glowed with a soft, pale light from the nearby star. Smoke rose from the small factories, and the hum of machinery filled the air. Among the rows of identical buildings, Terran moved quietly, carrying a crate of food. The other colonists hardly noticed him, busy with their own work, but Terran's eyes scanned the rocky hills beyond the settlement. He had seen something strange there yesterday, a movement that was too big and too quick to belong to any ordinary animal. Terran walked toward the hills, careful not to make noise. He was used to being alone, laughed at by most people for his strange ideas. He had always believed that dragons were real, even when everyone else said they were myths. The other colonists called him foolish. "Stop wasting time on stories, Terran," they would say. "Dragons don't exist. Go fix the generators like a normal person." Terran ignored them. He had a feeling, a strong one, that something was out there waiting for him. In a narrow valley between jagged rocks, Terran froze. There, huddled on the ground, was a massive creature. Its scales were dull and scratched, and one of its wings hung limply. The dragon's eyes were half closed, but when it looked at Terran, there was a spark of intelligence in its gaze. Terran's heart raced. He had never been this close to a real dragon before. Its size alone was enough to make most people run, but the creature did not attack. It was hurt, weak, and alone. Terran set down his crate carefully. He spoke softly, "I won't hurt you. I just want to help." The dragon flinched but did not flee. Terran opened the crate and placed some food on the ground. The smell of roasted meats and sweet fruits made the dragon lift its head, sniffing cautiously. Slowly it stepped forward, taking small bites. Terran smiled. "Good. Take your time. You need strength." The day passed, and Terran stayed with the dragon, hiding from the eyes of the other colonists. Every sound of machinery or footsteps made him nervous. He knew if anyone saw him feeding the dragon, they would mock him or even try to drive it away. By evening, the dragon had eaten most of the food and lay down again, breathing heavily. Terran touched its scaled head gently. "I'll come back tomorrow. You're not alone." Back in the colony, whispers started. People had seen Terran going toward the hills. Rumors spread quickly. "What is he doing out there?" one woman asked. "He's probably chasing myths again," a man said. A group of children ran past, laughing. "He's feeding rocks. Or maybe he talks to air." Laughter followed Terran wherever he went. He could feel their eyes on him, judging, mocking. But he did not care. He had seen the dragon. He knew it was real. That night, Terran could not sleep. He kept thinking about the dragon's eyes, the way it looked at him like it understood everything. He wondered how it had gotten hurt. Dragons were supposed to be ancient creatures, almost extinct, and yet here was one, alive, in need of help. Something in his mind whispered that this was no accident. The dragon had chosen him. The next morning, Terran returned to the valley with more food. He had scavenged some supplies from the colony, dried meats, nutrient packs, and water. The dragon lifted its head when it saw him. Its eyes seemed brighter, more aware. Terran noticed small scars along its scales, evidence of past battles. "You've been through a lot," he said softly. The dragon nudged his hand with its snout, a small gesture of trust. As the days passed, Terran's visits became routine. He fed the dragon, cleaned its wounds with herbs he had learned to grow, and talked to it about the colony. The dragon never spoke with words, but Terran felt its responses. Sometimes it trembled when people were near, or it flared its nostrils at strange sounds. Once Terran swore it smiled at him. Despite his care, the mocking did not stop. Colonists began leaving notes on his door, drawing pictures of dragons with silly faces. One morning, a group of workers called him out loud in the town square. "Hey Terran, are you cooking soup for the sky monster again?" They laughed, pointing toward the hills. Terran ignored them, walking past without a word. But inside he felt a mix of anger and determination. The dragon needed him, not their approval. One afternoon, while Terran was feeding the dragon, a loud rumble shook the valley. Rocks fell from the cliffs above. Terran shielded the dragon with his body. The dragon hissed and flapped its wings weakly, trying to move away from the falling stones. Terran grabbed its wing and guided it to safety. After the rocks had settled, he looked at the dragon. It was breathing heavily, its chest rising and falling. Terran patted its head. "Don't worry. I've got you." In that moment, the fear and ridicule of the colonists felt distant, meaningless. What mattered was this bond, fragile but real. As weeks went by, Terran noticed changes. The dragon grew stronger, its scales shining with faint colors in the sunlight. It began moving with more confidence, testing its wings carefully. Terran realized it might be ready to fly again soon. But he also sensed danger. The energy readings from the colony's sensors showed unusual activity in space. Something large and powerful was moving toward Orion's edge. He did not know what it was, but he felt it in his bones. The dragon and the colony were not safe. One night, Terran stayed longer than usual in the valley. He rested against a rock and the dragon lay beside him. In the quiet, Terran spoke softly, almost to himself. They can mock me all they want. They don't see what I see. One day they will understand. But until then I will protect you. No matter what comes. The dragon nudged him as if agreeing. The stars above them sparkled, silent witnesses to the beginning of something greater. The next morning Terran returned to the colony, greeted with smirks and laughter. But he carried a secret in his heart, a living dragon stronger each day waiting for him in the hills. And though no one knew it yet, the mocking would end when the real power of humans and dragons was revealed. The sun rose over Orion's edge, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Terran hurried toward the valley, his heart beating faster than usual. He carried a small pack of supplies, fresh water, nutrient packs, and some dried meats he had carefully prepared. When he arrived, the dragon was already awake. Its eyes followed him, bright and alert now, not the weak and tired gaze from the first day. Terran felt a thrill of relief. Vera, as he had named her, had grown stronger over the past week. Terran set the supplies down gently, keeping his movements slow so as not to startle her. Vera sniffed the air, then moved closer, picking up pieces of the food. Terran watched her carefully. The dragon's scales shimmered now with streaks of silver and blue, reflecting the sunlight. He could see muscles under the scales, strong and ready. It was amazing. A creature thought extinct for centuries was not only alive but regaining strength quickly. "Good morning, Vera," Terran said softly. "Did you sleep well?" The dragon tilted her head and exhaled a low, warm breath. Terran smiled. He was learning to understand her small gestures. Sometimes it was a nod of the head, sometimes a gentle movement of her wings. He began to think that the dragon could communicate in ways humans just did not fully understand. After breakfast, Terran inspected her wings. They were almost fully healed, though there were still small cuts along the edges. He touched the largest scar gently. Vera flinched slightly but did not pull away. Terran felt a shiver of excitement. She could fly again soon, and he would be the first human to ride a dragon in centuries. But he knew they needed training first. Flying would not be easy and the bond between them had to be strong. Over the next few days, Terran worked with Vera in the valley. He had found old texts in the colony's archives about dragons, their abilities, and how humans in ancient times had bonded with them. Some stories were simple myths, but others described real strategies for working with dragons. He taught Vera to respond to small commands, guiding her with gestures and soft sounds. Slowly she began to understand. When he raised his hand, she stopped. When he crouched, she lowered her head. The dragon's intelligence was surprising, almost human in some ways. One morning, while training near a small cliff, Vera suddenly jumped and glided a short distance. Terran ran beside her, holding a harness he had fashioned. She landed smoothly, then turned her head toward him, her eyes sparkling. Terran laughed. "Yes, that's it. You're ready." The dragon rumbled a low sound, almost like laughter. It was the first time Terran felt that their connection went beyond feeding and caring. There was trust and maybe even friendship. But the peaceful days did not last long. Sensors from the colony began sending strange readings. Energy spikes, unusual objects, and movement far beyond normal space activity. Terran studied the data and felt a knot in his stomach. Something was coming toward Orion's edge, something large and dangerous. He did not know what it was yet, but he knew that the dragon would be important. Humans alone might not survive the threat. That evening, as the twin moons rose over the valley, Terran sat beside Vera. He could feel her heartbeat, strong and steady. He spoke softly. "I think trouble is coming. We need to be ready." The dragon shifted closer, nuzzling him gently. Terran felt a deep connection forming, a bond that went beyond words. He realized that this dragon was not just a creature to protect. She was a partner, a friend, and perhaps the only chance the colony had against what was coming. One night, while Terran slept in the valley under a makeshift shelter, Vera stirred. She lifted her head and sniffed the air. Terran woke as well, startled by her sudden movement. "What is it?" he whispered. Vera's wings twitched, and a wave of warmth radiated from her body. Terran felt an image flash in his mind, bright light, fire, and shadows of massive creatures in the sky. The vision was strong, almost like a warning. Terran understood immediately. The danger approaching the colony was real and it was enormous. The next morning Terran tried to warn the colonists. He spoke to the council, showing them the sensor readings and explaining what he had seen in Vera's warning. "Something is coming from space," he said. "We are not safe." The council members frowned. Some nodded politely but most laughed. "Dragons and space monsters? Terran, your imagination is getting worse," one said. Another added, "Go back to your feeding and playing with rocks." The laughter stung, but Terran did not give up. He had Vera and she had shown him the truth. Over the following days Terran and Vera trained even harder. He taught her to channel energy from the small sun nearby. Vera could focus light into bursts strong enough to create heat and force, though she was still learning control. Terran was careful, guiding her every step. When she flared her energy too early, he calmed her. When she hesitated, he encouraged her. Slowly, her power became manageable and Terran felt hope. One afternoon, Terran decided to test their first flight together. Vera stretched her wings, feeling the wind on her scales. Terran climbed onto her back, gripping the harness tightly. He whispered, "Ready?" The dragon exhaled a low rumble. Then with a leap they soared above the valley. The wind rushed past them, the ground falling away. Terran shouted in joy. Vera's wings beat powerfully, lifting them higher and faster. The colonists who saw them from a distance froze in shock. Many could not believe what they were witnessing. A human riding a real dragon, flying with skill and courage. By the end of the day, Terran and Vera returned safely. Terran could see wonder and fear in the eyes of some colonists. Even the skeptics began to whisper, maybe he was not lying. Maybe dragons are real. Terran smiled quietly to himself. He knew that this was only the beginning. Vera had awakened, stronger and wiser, and together, they would face whatever threat was approaching Orion's edge. The mockery was fading, replaced by respect, curiosity and perhaps, a hint of fear. As night fell, Terran sat beside Vera once again. "We are ready," he said softly. "Whatever comes, we will face it together." The dragon nudged him, warm and powerful. Terran looked at the stars above, sensing the presence of something huge moving closer. He did not know what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain. A new chapter had begun, and the human who once was mocked had found his strength, and his dragon. Terran woke before dawn, the air crisp and cool around Orion's edge. The valley was quiet except for the soft rustle of leaves and the low, steady breathing of Vera, who lay curled near the rocks. Terran smiled, feeling the warmth of her presence. Over the past weeks, their bond had grown stronger than he had imagined. She was no longer just a wounded dragon he cared for. She was his companion, his partner, and together they were becoming something the colony had never seen before. He carried food and a small pack of supplies to the dragon. Vera lifted her head as he approached, her eyes bright with awareness. The scales along her back glinted in the first rays of sunlight. She stretched her wings fully, testing them again, and rumbled a low sound. Terran patted her side gently. "You're ready for more today. We need to train harder. I think it's time you learn to control your energy better." Terran had spent hours studying old texts about dragons, how ancient humans had trained them to channel fire, lightning, and energy. He realized that Vera's power could be dangerous if she didn't learn control. But with guidance, it could also be the colony's strongest defense. He had built simple targets in the valley, rocks, metal plates, and piles of dirt. Each was marked for practice and he used them to teach Vera precision. The first exercise was simple. He directed her to focus on a pile of rocks. At first, her energy burst wildly, shattering more than intended. Terran stayed calm, guiding her with his voice and hands. "No, Vera. Aim smaller. Control the flame. Focus on the target." Slowly she adjusted. A small beam of fire struck the pile, breaking it exactly where he wanted. Terran cheered softly. "Yes, that's it." The dragon shook her head and emitted a pleased rumble, a sound that made Terran laugh. As the days passed, their training grew more advanced. Terran climbed onto Vera's back, testing aerial maneuvers while she flew above the valley. They practiced banking, diving, and hovering. Vera's energy control became sharper. She learned to flare only when necessary, and her bursts of light and heat became precise. Terran felt exhilaration each time they soared together. The wind rushed past them and the world below seemed smaller, fragile. He realized how powerful their partnership could be. One evening, while resting after a flight, Terran noticed something unusual. Vera's eyes glowed faintly as she gazed toward the horizon. He followed her gaze and saw faint glimmers moving in space. At first he thought it was starlight, but the patterns were wrong. There were shapes moving deliberately, shapes that were too large and fast to be normal spacecraft. His stomach tightened. He did not know exactly what it was, but instinct told him danger was approaching. Terran decided to warn the colony again. He spoke to a small group of workers who had begun to respect him quietly. "Something is coming," he said. "I don't know what, but we need to prepare. Vera can help us." The workers hesitated, looking at each other. Some were afraid, some skeptical, but a few nodded, trusting Terran after seeing the dragon in flight. "We'll help," one said quietly. "If you're right, we'll need every hand." The following days were filled with preparation. Terran and Vera worked together to scout the hills and the skies. He set up simple alarms and traps, while Vera learned to respond quickly to signals. If a threat appeared, she could attack, protect, or warn the colony. Terran felt proud of how fast she was learning. She was not only strong but intelligent and adaptable, qualities he knew would be crucial. During one practice session, Terran decided to test Vera's combat abilities in the air. He directed her to strike floating targets suspended from ropes. Her first few attempts missed or hit too hard, breaking the ropes and knocking over several metal plates. Terran stayed calm, helping her adjust. "Control, Vera. You have the strength. Now aim carefully." On the next try, her energy hit precisely, and the targets fell without unnecessary destruction. Terran laughed in delight. "Perfect. You're amazing." The dragon's low rumble echoed in agreement, and Terran felt a thrill of victory. The colonists began noticing changes. Rumors spread quietly: "The human can fly with the dragon. He is teaching it tricks." Some came to watch from a distance, all replacing mockery. A few brave ones even asked if they could help. Terran welcomed them carefully, teaching them to assist with preparations while keeping Vera's training safe. Slowly, the colony began to respect him, not as a foolish dreamer, but as someone who had discovered something powerful, something that could protect them all. One day, while Terran and Vera trained near a cliff, a sudden shadow passed over them. Vera growled low in her throat, her wings tensing. Terran looked up and saw it, a massive craft moving through space, far larger than any ship the colony had ever seen. Its engines glowed and strange lights flashed along its hull. Terran's pulse quickened. This was what he had sensed for weeks. Danger was real and it was coming closer. He whispered to Vera, "Stay calm. We have trained for this. We can face it." The dragon rumbled, wings stretching wide, muscles taut and ready. Terran climbed onto her back, gripping the harness tightly. Together they rose above the valley, circling and observing the approaching craft. Vera's energy flared subtly, a warning to any who might come too close. Terran felt the bond between them stronger than ever. They were ready. As night fell, they returned to the valley. Terran looked at Vera, feeling a mixture of awe and relief. "We are ready," he said softly. "No matter what comes, we face it together." The stars glittered above, quiet witnesses to the human and dragon who had formed a bond unlike any other. In that moment, Terran understood something important. Strength alone was not enough. It was trust, loyalty, and courage that made their partnership unbreakable. And whatever threat approached Orion's edge, it would have to face both human and dragon united. The sky over Orion's edge darkened suddenly, filled with the hum of engines and the glow of distant lights. Terran and Vera were on a hill near the valley, scanning the horizon. The massive alien fleet had arrived. Their ships were enormous, sleek and black, reflecting the pale sunlight. Terran's stomach twisted, but he did not panic. He had trained with Vera. They were ready, or as ready as anyone could be. The first wave of smaller ships broke through the atmosphere. They fired strange energy beams at the colony's defenses. Buildings shook and alarms blared. Colonists ran for cover, shouting and panicking. Terran climbed onto Vera's back, gripping the harness tightly. "Stay close to me," he said. "We have to protect them." Vera exhaled a low roar, flaring a small burst of energy from her mouth. The light struck one of the attacking ships, forcing it to change direction. It was their first warning: the humans and dragon would not be easy to defeat. Terran guided Vera into the sky. He felt the rush of wind and the power of her wings beneath him. Together they flew above the colony, scanning for the largest threats. Another group of alien ships approached the valley directly. Terran took a deep breath and directed Vera's energy toward them. She released a controlled burst of fire and light. The beams struck the enemy ships, hitting engines and shields, causing explosions that sent them tumbling into the atmosphere. The colonists on the ground cheered in disbelief. The dragon they had mocked was saving them. But the enemy was not deterred. The larger ships descended, dropping armored soldiers who moved quickly across the valley. They were unlike any human soldiers Terran had seen, tall, strong, with strange weapons that fired pulses of light. Vera's eyes glowed as she sensed them. Terran leaned forward. Focus. Protect them. The dragon flared her wings, sending a wave of energy that knocked the soldiers back. Dust and debris swirled around, and some colonists began firing makeshift weapons. Terran realized that victory would not come easily. The enemy was well organized and had numbers on their side. He and Vera began to use guerrilla tactics, flying low between cliffs and rocks, striking quickly, and then disappearing before the next wave could respond. Vera's fire and energy bursts were precise. Terran directed her to focus on shields, engines and supply lines, avoiding unnecessary destruction. Each strike sent the aliens back, giving the colonists hope. On the ground, the colonists began to fight with renewed courage. They had seen what Terran and Vera could do. For the first time, they understood the bond between human and dragon. Together they set traps, built barriers and fired at any alien who came too close. Terran guided them from above, shouting instructions, pointing out enemy weaknesses. The mockery of days past was gone. Now everyone depended on each other, and on Vera. At one point, a massive alien warship moved toward the colony's center. Its weapons fired constantly, tearing holes in walls and sending sparks across the streets. Terran and Vera attacked. She flared her energy repeatedly, forcing the ship to change course. Terran noticed weak points in the ship's armor and directed precise bursts at them. Slowly the massive craft began to falter. Explosions rocked the hull and the alien soldiers inside retreated. The colonists watched in awe as the dragon and the human controlled the battlefield with skill and courage. Even as they fought, Terran knew the battle was dangerous. Vera's energy could not last forever, and the alien fleet still had many ships. He adjusted their strategy, keeping Vera mobile and using hit-and-run tactics. The dragon responded perfectly, trusting Terran completely. They swooped down, attacked, and pulled back to the cliffs before the enemy could counterattack. Each success strengthened their confidence, but Terran knew they could not be careless. One mistake could cost them everything. The fight continued through the day. Terran and Vera moved as one, a perfect team. When a group of alien soldiers tried to flank the colony, Vera's wings flared, creating a wall of energy that stopped them. Terran guided her carefully, keeping the bursts precise. On the ground, colonists rallied behind their leaders, inspired by the courage above. For the first time they felt like they could win. The aliens were strong, but they were not prepared for this, humans working together with a dragon. As night fell, the alien fleet began to retreat. Their losses were heavy, and the unexpected resistance had shaken them. Terran and Vera circled the valley one last time, surveying the damage. Buildings were scarred, debris lay everywhere, but the colony had survived. Colonists ran to Terran, cheering and hugging each other. Some even hugged him. He smiled, exhausted but proud. Vera landed gently beside him, her wings folding, scales glinting in the moonlight. She had done it. Together they had defended their home. The battle was over, but Terran knew this was not the end. The aliens had retreated for now, but they would return. He looked at Vera, feeling the strength of their bond. "We did it today," he said softly. "But we must be ready. They will come back." The dragon nudged him, warm and powerful, as if promising that together, they could face anything. In the valley, under the stars, the colonists gathered around Terran and Vera. The humans who had once mocked him now looked with awe and respect. Terran realized that the mockery had ended, replaced by something stronger: trust, hope, and courage. The war had descended, but human and dragon had survived. And together they would face the next challenge stronger than ever before. The sky over Orion's edge was calm now, but the valley bore the marks of the battle. Craters scarred the ground and some buildings were damaged, but the colony was still standing. Terran sat beside Vera on a small hill, watching the stars. The dragon's wings were folded neatly, her breathing steady. They had survived the attack, but Terran knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy had learned something important. Humans were not to be underestimated. The colonists moved carefully among the ruins, repairing walls and clearing debris. Many approached Terran and Vera with cautious respect, no longer mocking him for feeding a dragon. Children peeked from behind crates, wide-eyed, watching the dragon's scales shimmer in the moonlight. Terran smiled faintly. He had always believed that humans could rise above fear and mockery, and now the proof was here, in the bravery of the people around him and in the bond he shared with Vera. News of the battle spread beyond Orion's edge. Scouts and messengers carried reports to nearby colonies and trading stations. Stories traveled fast. A human had bonded with a dragon and defended a colony from a massive alien fleet. Some laughed at first, thinking it a legend, but others who had witnessed the attack from a distance believed it. The galaxy began to take notice. Humans were no longer a quiet, minor species on the outskirts. They were fighters, clever, and surprisingly united. Terran and Vera continued their training. She was stronger now, and her energy control was precise. Terran had taught her new techniques. Subtle bursts to disable ships without destroying them, low-energy shields to protect people, and swift maneuvers to avoid danger. Together, they flew over the valley, practicing patrols and reconnaissance. Terran knew that this would prepare them for whatever enemies might come next. He could feel that the galaxy was watching, waiting to see if humans could rise to the challenge again. Some colonists volunteered to join their efforts. Engineers helped build simple defensive devices, scouts learned to follow signals from Vera, and farmers collected fuel and supplies for long-term survival. Terran taught them how to work with the dragon safely. Slowly, Orion's Edge became a hub of human resilience, a place where courage and intelligence worked together. The people who had once mocked him now looked to him for guidance. The transformation was quiet but powerful. One evening, as Terran and Vera rested near the cliffs, a scout ship arrived. It was small, but its message was important. The pilot, an older human named Sarah, reported that alien forces had retreated farther than expected. They had underestimated humans, and other species in nearby systems were beginning to reconsider their opinions about humanity. Some were even sending observers to see what humans and their dragons could do. Terran listened carefully. The galaxy was changing its view of humans, not because of their technology but because of courage, creativity, and determination. Over the following weeks, Terran continued to lead patrols with Vera. Together, they discovered small alien probes and disrupted supply lines before any harm reached the colony. Each successful defense strengthened the legend of humans and dragons. Colonists from nearby systems came to see them, learning what it meant to fight alongside dragons. Terran began teaching these visitors small lessons about teamwork, trust, and courage. The galaxy was watching, and humans were proving their worth. Despite their success, Terran never let pride blind him. He knew that dragons were powerful, but they needed careful handling and respect. Vera was more than a weapon, she was a friend, and he treated her as such. He spent quiet moments brushing her scales, feeding her, and talking softly. In return, she remained loyal and attentive. The bond between them became a symbol across the stars. Strength came not just from fire or wings, but from connection and trust. One night, the colony gathered to celebrate a small victory, the retreat of the alien scouts and the survival of Orion's Edge. Terran stood before the people, with Vera coiled nearby, glowing faintly under the moonlight. "We have faced what others thought impossible," he said. "We have protected our home, and we have learned that courage is not measured by size or weapons. It is measured by the heart, by the willingness to fight for what is right, and by standing together." The colonists cheered, and children ran to touch Vera's shimmering scales. The legend of Terran and Vera began to spread through the galaxy. Humans who had been overlooked were now respected and even feared by other species. They had shown that intelligence, bravery, and the ability to form bonds, even with dragons, could change the balance of power. Traders, diplomats, and explorers took note. Humans were no longer simply observers in the galaxy, they were protectors, innovators, and fighters. Vera rumbled softly, nudging Terran. He smiled, feeling the strength of their partnership. "We have done more than survive," he said. "We have shown what humans can do when they refuse to give up. And the galaxy has learned the lesson." Terran looked out at the stars, thinking about the future. There would be more challenges, more enemies, but he knew that humans could meet them. With courage, wisdom, and allies like Vera, they were unstoppable. As dawn broke, the colony of Orion's Edge was alive with energy and hope. Terran climbed onto Vera's back, and together they soared above the valley. The wind rushed past them, the valley below glowing in soft light. Humans and dragon moved as one, ready for whatever the galaxy might bring. The mocking of the past was gone, replaced by respect and awe. And across the stars, other civilizations began to whisper the same lesson. Never underestimate a human who stands with courage and fights for what they love. The galaxy had learned something important. Humans were no longer just ordinary beings. They were clever, brave, and capable of forming bonds that could change the course of wars. And at the center of that lesson, soaring above a small colony with the shimmering dragon by his side, was Terran, the human who had once been mocked, now a symbol of what humanity could become.